Hi, and welcome to Business Fundamentals, part of the Women in Business Programme 2024 through BIPC Devon and sponsored by Cambridge Council. My name's Clare Palmer from Clarity Coaching, and I'm here today to go through this presentation with you. However, please remember this is a generic presentation on business fundamentals, and your job is to apply that to the industry and markets that your business applies in, always seeking professional legal advice where required. And if you need specialist financial advice, you should always go and see a specialist or professional for that. You can pause this recording at any time, make any notes that you want, and really take it at your own pace to apply it to your business, the industry that you're in, and who are your customers and what you're trying to achieve. So today we're going to look through these 4 sections. I'm going to give you an introduction into basic business planning, because if you ever Google business planning, you will find that you have thousands, if not millions, of results. And it's really important to, when you're putting a plan together for your business, make it personal to your business. So, do some homework, get what's right for you and go with that. But I'll give you an introduction into some different types of business planning. We'll also have a quick look at legal and regulatory compliance. So again, you will need to apply this to your business, to the industry that you operate in, and what legal and regulatory requirements are there that you need to comply with, and how are you going to do that. We'll also be having a look today at BCM planning. So the BCM stands for Business Continuity Management. So in other words, when things go wrong, how do we get them back on track? And then finally, we'll be having a look at some financial planning. So what are the types of financial planning that you may adopt in your business, and how will you manage those? So let's begin by looking at some different types of business plans. So on the screen here, you'll see just some plans that I have selected. So if we start off with the startup business plan, that's designed for new businesses that are seeking funding, or they want to establish a roadmap. They want to look at where they're going to go. And that kind of startup business plan is something maybe that you would take to the bank, for example, if you were looking for additional finance, and you'd show that you've been able to look through your business, that you've done your market analysis, that you've got your organizational structure right, you've got a marketing and sales strategies, you know where those funding requests are coming from, and you also know what your financial projections are. Now, the next one on here is internal. So your internal business plan. This is used internally within your own business to really look at your strategy. How are you going to grow? How are you going to manage your operations, or indeed maybe even restructure? So it's very similar to the startup plan, but it has more focus on the internal operations and the strategic and the strategic objectives that you have for your business. The next one on here that we see is the one-page plan. So a one-page plan is very much as it says. It's really on one page, and it's a concise summary of your business. It has brief sections to it that mainly focus on the vision and the mission for the business. What's the strategy of the business, and what action are you going to take to make that business happen? The next one on here is operational. So this really focuses on the internal workings of a business, and it has specific plans for each department. So it might have, human resources, for example, production, your logistic plan in there, and it often includes short-term objectives or milestones for each of those key units. Now, an operational business plan as well is quite good for you to look at what gaps have you got in terms of your process, documentation, or your policies, because if you aren't there to oversee them and you know them all, and someone has to step in and take over your role, how are they going to do that? So it's a good way to identify what gaps are missing there. The next one on here is growth business plan. So your growth plan, it's mainly used by established businesses when they're looking to expand. And it will focus more into emerging markets, existing market analysis. Where is the expansion opportunities? With those opportunities, what kind of financial projections come from that? And how will you fund that growth plan to really implement it? And let's see what happens there. The next one on here is feasibility. So a feasibility plan is about assessing the viability of maybe a new product, a service, or a business idea. And it really looks at what is what is the feasibility of a particular market maybe, or a particular technical issue, or financially, how viable is it that we go with this? So a feasibility plan allows you to see what areas you've got that you can really expand and grow, and it allows you to notice what are the gaps, and then you can plan for how are you going to fill those. The next one on here is contingency. So I said earlier that we'll be looking at contingency plans today, BCM planning. So its purpose is to really address potential risks and potentially any unforeseen events. And if we look back to what happened in COVID, for example, many businesses, once the pandemic hit, realized that they'd got a big problem, because whilst they might have planned for sickness, no one planned for sickness on such a big scale, or people not being able to go into the office for a long period of times. So it allows you to look at those kind of big, almost catastrophes that could happen, and plan for, okay, how would we get around that? How would we reduce the impact on our business? So the next on here is funding. So a funding plan is there to make sure you can secure funding from investors, banks, or other financial institutions. And it will contain a quite detailed executive summary of, what is the vision of the business? What are you trying to do? How are you going to try and do that? It will have in-depth market analysis. It will have a marketing and sales strategy contained in there. And it will also have some very detailed financial projections. So, not just one projection of a 10% increase. It would look at what's a 2% increase look like, what's a 5% increase look like, what's a 10% increase look like, and so on and so forth. So it really is there to give potential investors that reassurance that your business is ready to deliver on what you think it can deliver and the outcomes that you would get from that. And then finally on here, I've got lean business plan. So a lean business plan is a real simplified plan, and it's often used in the early stages for internal planning. It will look at things like key activities, key resources, key customer relationships. What are your customer segments? Who's that ideal customer of yours? It'll look at things like cost structure and revenue streams, so that you can really get to grips with, okay, if this is what I want, what do I need to have internally to deliver those things? But it's very lean, it's very succinct, and is something that you would tend to only use as you were starting up something new. So let's look at one of these plans in a little bit more detail. So today I've chosen the one-page plan for you, because I think it's something that you can quickly do as part of your listening to this recording. And it's certainly something that we'll be doing in the room as a live group. So during this, at any time, feel free to pause, write down what you're thinking, what you're imagining, and let's see if we can create a one-page plan for you during this. So creating a one-page plan, what does it need to have? So we need to have a vision statement. So a vision statement is a brief statement that describes the future state of your business. What does it aim to achieve? So, for example, if you were a home cleaning company, your vision may be to be the leading provider of eco-friendly home cleaning solutions in the Southwest. So next comes the mission statement. So this is a short statement on the business's core purpose and focus. So if we keep with our vision of being the leading provider of eco-friendly home cleaning solutions in the Southwest, a mission statement could be something like to deliver high quality, environmentally safe cleaning products that improve the health and well-being of our customers. So you see how that shows our core purpose and our focus. The next thing that you would put on your one-page plan is your objectives. So objectives should be specific and they should be measurable. And they should be based on what the business aims to achieve in both the short term and the long term. So, for example, our short-term objective of our cleaning company could be to achieve £50,000 worth of sales in the first 6 months. Another one could be securing 100 repeat customers within the first year. And then longer-term objectives could be things like expand the product line to include 10 new items within 2 years, or open a second store in a neighboring region within 5 years. So you see how those objectives are specific and they're measurable. They've got a date on them and they've got hard numbers in there. The next title on your one-page plan is strategies. So these are the high-level approaches that you could take to achieving your business objective. So in our cleaning business, for example, we could have a strategy around our product, such as develop and launch a new eco-friendly cleaning product every quarter. We would have a marketing strategy. How are we going to tell our potential customers about our amazing products? So our marketing strategy could be around using social media advertising to reach a wider audience, but also partner with local health and wellness influencers who promote our products for us. So the next page on here is action. So what are our action plans? What are the specific actions that we need to take to implement those strategies that we've just looked at? So for example, under product development, we might have research and develop new formulas of cleaning products, source sustainable and eco-friendly packing materials. Under marketing, we might have create a social media content calendar and schedule posts. And we might have contact local influencers and negotiate promotional deals. The next block on here is financial summary. So this on our one-page plan would be a brief overview of the financial goals and the key metrics. So for example, in our cleaning business, we could have a revenue goal of £10,000 in monthly sales within the first 3 months. And we could have increased monthly sales by 10% each quarter. So that shows how revenue would grow. Under budget, we might have that, we're only going to spend £2,000 per month on marketing. And product development, we're willing to spend £1,500 per month. So all of those kind of financial top level things would go into that financial summary. And then finally, key metrics. So these are indicators which will be used to measure the success of the business. So in our cleaning business, for example, one of our key metrics might be our customer acquisition cost. In other words, how much does it take us to get a new customer? So we could work that out maybe at £20 per customer. We would also have a customer retention rate, because if one of our goals was to increase sales by 10% each quarter, we know that we need to retain customers to do that. So we could have a customer retention rate of, say, 80%. And we might also have something in there around a monthly recurring revenue measure. So that would be something like to track and aim to increase by 10% on a quarterly basis, because we know we need to do that to hit our revenue goals. So that is a one-page plan that helps you really focus and think about, what is the vision of my business? What is the mission? You know, what are my objectives? What am I trying to deliver here? What am I aiming for? What strategies am I going to use to make those objectives real and happen? What action do I need to take to make those things become alive? What financial metrics am I aiming for? What are my financial goals? And then finally, what are my key metrics? So what are the things that I'm going to be measuring on maybe a weekly or a monthly or a quarterly basis to prove that I am hitting everything that I want to? So take a moment, maybe go back to the previous slide and see if you can deliver a one-page plan for your business. Okay, next we're moving on to legal and regulatory considerations. Now, these will be different for every single business and will be very dependent on the industry and the environment, the bits that are going into your business, what are all those things and how they come together and what you need to be aware of. So when it comes to legal and regulatory requirements, you know, you really do have to look at the industry that you're working in and your market. But there are some common ones that kind of go across many businesses. So we're just going to focus in on those. So the first one is business structure. So you decide whether you are a sole trader, so you're registered as self-employed with HMRC. Maybe you've gone for a partnership, so you need to register the partnership and submit a partnership tax return. Or maybe you've gone for a limited company, in which case you've registered with Company House and you need to comply with company law and file annual returns. We've got on here business name. So ensure that the business name that you have is unique and you're not infringing on any existing trademarks that other people hold. Register the business name maybe with Company House if you're operating as a limited business. Next on here, we've got taxation. So, you know, we have to abide by taxation laws, such as a self-assessment. So you need to register for self-assessment if you're a sole trader or a partner. You might have to pay corporation tax if you register for and pay corporation tax because you're operating as a limited company. You might have to pay value-added tax. So you've registered for VAT if your turnover exceeds the threshold. Next thing that you may want to consider is employment law. You know, if you're employing people, you need to have a written term of employment with that employee. You need to be paying the national minimum wage. So you need to pay at least the minimum wage according to someone's age and status. You may have to comply with making pension contributions and auto enroll eligible employees in your business to a workplace pension scheme. You may have to abide to health and safety legislation and ensure that your workplace complies with health and safety regulations. You may have to pay national insurance and PAYE. So if you register as an employer and manage the PAYE for income tax and national insurance contributions. Next thing that you may need to have is insurance. So if you employ people, you will need to make sure that you have employer's liability insurance. You may need to have public liability insurance, which protects you against claims from the public for injury or damage. You may need to have professional indemnity insurance, which is required for certain professionals to cover against claims of negligence or mistakes. You may need to have specific licenses or permits. So, do check to see if your business requires a specific license or permits. For example, if you are selling alcohol at a food stall, if you're providing entertainment, if you're a taxi driver, all of those kind of things and many more. Data protection. It's really important that all of us comply with the General Data Protection Regulation. You may hear this called GDPR for short, and you must apply it whenever you're handling personal data. So if you're handling your customers' data, you need to comply with GDPR. You may need to find that you need to register with the ICO, the Information Commissioner's Office, if you're actually processing personal data. And if you're unsure, I highly recommend just taking a quick course on data protection and what your role and requirements are. Next, we've got intellectual property. You might want to consider registering your trademark, any patents or copyrights to protect your business intellectual property. Consumer protection is another one. So, if you're selling to consumers, you need to adhere to the Consumer Rights Act, which sets out requirements for product quality, returns, and refunds. You need to be able to provide clear terms and conditions for your sales and services. You may need to comply with environmental regulations. So complying with regulations on such things as waste management, recycling, or emissions, if they're applicable to your business. Financial reporting. You may need to be able to maintain accurate and up-to-date financial records. You may have to supply annual accounts, so preparing and filing annual accounts with Companies House, because you're a limited company, is something you have to do. You may need to submit a confirmation statement annually as well to Companies House. So they're all things to consider. You've got contracts and agreements. So, you might need to draft and maintain contracts with your suppliers, your customers, and other stakeholders, and ensure that contracts comply with the Unfair Contract Terms Act and other relevant legislation. You may also need to look at the anti-money laundering regulation, so AML for short, and register with an appropriate supervisory body if your business is involved in activities that are covered by anti-money laundering regulations, such as financial services, real estate, or accounting. And so by ensuring that you are complying with legal and regulatory requirements means that you'll be able to operate more smoothly and avoid potential legal issues. But as I've said before, it's always advisable to consult with a legal professional or business advisor that's specific to your industry and your business to ensure that all the specific requirements for your business are met. Okay, we're now on to BCM, Business Continuity Management. So identifying and managing risks. So I want you to, first of all, imagine that you are walking along a path and in front of you is a hole. Now there is a risk that you could fall down that hole. You've not yet fallen down the hole, but there's a risk you could. It becomes an issue if you have fallen down the hole. So it's important that we understand the difference between risks and issues. Risks are something that could cause harm. An issue is something that is causing harm. Sometimes your risks may turn into issues, And sometimes issues that you've currently got right now that you put mitigation in to correct them may turn back to become a risk. And you need to decide what is your level of risk that you're willing to take in your business. And it will be different for everybody. So if I was to ask you now to maybe note down your top 3 risks and any issues you've got, and think about how are you going to mitigate those risks and how are you going to fix those issues. Now, BCM planning helps you to manage your risks because you start to look for potential things that could go wrong and have a plan in place to stop them going wrong, or to treat them if they do go wrong. But as with any plan, it's always advantageous to regularly test your plan. So, what are the kind of things that your BCM plan may contain? So we've got 11 things noted down here. So your BCM plan may look at natural disasters. If a natural disaster was to happen, for example, a flood, how would you carry on working? Is it going to cause physical damage to the property, for example, or your infrastructure? What about people walking across your car park if it's snowy or icy? Or maybe if you're in a remote part, how's extremely cold weather going to disrupt transportation and the supply chain? How's it going to affect things coming to you and things going out from your business? So that's the kind of things that we look at under natural disaster. We've then got human-made. And human-made disasters can be things like fire, which could result in a loss of property, data, or life. It could be terrorism, for example, a bomb threat or an attack or any act of violence. How would that affect your business, your people, your ability to serve your customers? And vandalism. What about damage to your property or equipment? If your key piece of equipment got broken, how would you get it fixed? What is the impact it's going to have on your business? How could you revert to using maybe an old piece of equipment? All of those things come in. Next, we've got technology incidents or power outages. So we all know that power outages can be annoying. They can disrupt operations, but they're going to be especially harmful if your business is reliant on IT. If all of your marketing, for example, is done through social media and suddenly you can't get onto the internet, what are you going to do? So looking at things like that, looking at what are you going to do if your IT systems fail? If you've got all of your customer data on a particular server and that server crashes, what are you going to do? How are you going to deal with data that's corrupted? So things like how often are you going to back up data? Where are you going to securely store that, so that you've always got that backup plan? And also in here, remember, under technology, and increasingly we're seeing cyber attacks. So these could include ransomware. They could be releasing data that you hold on your customers. They could be people hacking into your accounts. So how are you going to mitigate the risk of that? And what plan are you going to take should you be involved in a cyber attack? Next, we've got supply chain disruption. So these are when maybe your supplier fails, a key supplier, for example, going out of business, or they're unable to deliver goods to you. What's your backup plan there? What's your, plan B? Maybe you've got transportation issues. Maybe there's disruption in the logistics chain, the shipping canal gets blocked again. What's the impact of that on your business? How are you going to overcome that? Do you have a certain amount of stock that you have just in case you can't get new things to create more stock? It might be that there are changes to import and export restrictions. So, changes to regulation or geopolitical issues that happen across the world and then affect trade. What does that look like in your business? You'll see on here, we've got the pandemic and health emergencies. We know now the impact that COVID-19 had, but if something like COVID-19 was to happen again, what impact would that have on your business? What are you going to do if you have illness and absenteeism? How are you going to make sure that the job can carry on without you being there? Or it could be something like a public health crisis. So, it could affect people being able to come to your location, particularly, in Devon, for example, if we have an outbreak of a disease in animals, it may be that if your business is based on a farm, actually getting in and out is no longer possible. So how are you going to cope with that? Next on here, we've got utility failures and water supply issues. Water supply issues are really important because if you have employees there and you have a business that requires you to follow health and safety regulations and there's a loss of water supply, it's going to affect your ability to operate. If you lost your gas, does it affect your heating? What about any production processes that need to be run from heat sources? Cooking, for example, in a cookery business. So think of those types of things. What about human resource issues? So if you suddenly lost one of your key people in your business, how would you overcome that? How do you know that the work they do can be carried on? Do you have that work documented and processed? Have you tested those processes to make sure that someone with little or no knowledge of that role is able to follow that document well? Also for larger businesses, sometimes labor disputes can happen, such as strikes. So again, if a strike was to happen in your business, how would you cope? How would you keep going? How would you inform customers that there's going to be a delay? All of those kind of things. We've next got regulatory and legal incidents. So maybe there's a violation of a requirement, and that's going to result in you facing a large fine. How is your business going to be able to deal with that? How will it deal with legal action being brought against it or restrictions being made on your business? So think about those things. And then we've got financial crisis. What if there's an economic downturn? So if the economy fell by, let's say, 3%, what impact would that have on your business, on your customers? Is that going to cause you cash flow problems? Are you still going to be able to meet your financial obligations if you've got loans, for example? Are you still going to be able to pay suppliers or employees that you have? So think about all of those things. Next, we've got infrastructure failure, in other words, business damages. So if there's a structural issue with your premises, how are you going to deal with that? Have you got somewhere else you can go to? Have you got plans in place that people can work from home? What about transport and network disruptions? If there's a train strike that lasts for more than 2 days, how is that going to affect your business, your employees' ability to get to work, or goods being transported to and from your location? So you can think about all of those things and plan it for different time periods. Maybe if it's a train strike, 1 day, 3 days, 5 days, you'll see that the risk and the impact suddenly changes the longer an event goes on for. And then finally on here, we've got reputational damage, which is often caused by negative publicity. So these could be customer complaints. Maybe you've had to do a product recall, or you've had an incident on social media. So think about how are you going to, and when are you going to react to those situations, and what is that plan of reaction looking like for you? So steps to create your business continuity plan. First of all, it is about identifying those potential risks and the impact of your business. The HSE website is a good place to start if you've never created a business continuity plan before. That will give you some really good guidance. Next, you're going to do an impact analysis. You're going to determine which functions are critical for your business, and of those, what is the impact of any disruption? Next, you'll look at your strategy and solution. It's kind of, when do I step in and what action do I take? So develop strategies for mitigating the risks and maintaining, your business so that it can carry on functioning in the way that you want it to. You're going to have a response plan. So this is the plan B. When this thing happens, this is what we do. So a detailed response plan will be really handy for you when those things happen, because you will find, particularly if you have staff, that they go into a bit of crisis mode and everyone panics. So knowing that there's a detailed response plan there that people can pick up and use is really important. Have a communication plan. There's no point in having a response plan if nobody knows where it is. Okay, so make sure that you have a communication plan that says, when we need to invoke our BCM plan, this is what will happen. The line manager will come out and gather the people who need to take action. We will make sure that you are updated every 2 hours or 3 hours or whatever it looks like. So you can put together that communication plan. It's important that you train anyone that's involved in your plan so they know where those continuity plans, those actions are, but they also know how to use them, and then test them. So, on a regular basis, create a incident that tests your plan. Maybe you'll say, I don't know, on the 12th of December, suddenly we've lost our marketing plan. What do we do? When was that marketing plan last updated? Where was it last stored? Look at all of those things that you could do that would help you recover that plan. And then finally, review and update. You will see new risks start to appear. You'll see other risks suddenly decline. They're no longer there. The world has changed. So it's important that you continually review and update your business continuity plan to make sure that your business can keep running effectively. Okay, what about financial planning then? Financial planning is really critical for the success and sustainability of your business. And here are some steps that I think you should be considering when you're looking at your financial planning. So the first one we've got on here is budgeting. I think you need to create a detailed budget that covers any costs, such as equipment, licenses, maybe legal fees, marketing, anything that you need to make sure that your business is up and ready to go. Next, we've got operational budgets. So develop a budget for ongoing expenses. So things that are going to happen month in, month out. These are things like rent, utility bills, maybe salaries that you need to pay people, marketing, and supplies. Next, we've got cash flow budget. So, you need to be looking at forecasting cash inflows and outflows to ensure that the business can meet any financial obligations that it's got, and that you don't end up being in a situation where you are owing all the time and there never seems to be a point that you can recover from that. So next we've got funding and financing. So, think about how you're funding and financing your business. Maybe it's from personal savings. So consider how much of your personal capital you can invest in your business, and don't overstretch yourself so that it becomes an inconvenience. Maybe you're looking at bank loans, so you can explore business loans from banks, but make sure you understand the terms and repayment schedules and you don't fall behind on those. Remember, there are grants and government programs that are available. So make sure you investigate all available grants and funding programs for your business in the UK. You might be looking at investors. So you might want to start thinking about, how am I going to seek out potential investors and show them that my business is worthwhile them investing in. Or you might be considering other radical things such as crowdfunding or angel investments, and you are looking to think, okay, how much do I need to crowdfund? What are the people that are going to support me and pay into that fund? What's kind of relevant and meaningful to them, and how am I going to make sure that I show them that? So they're all things that you can think about under funding and financing. When we're planning for revenue projections, so this is about sales forecasting and estimating your sales based on really robust market research that you've done. Make sure that you're looking at industry trends and that all of those things are tied into your marketing plan. You might also at this stage be thinking about doing a break-even analysis and determine what is the break-even point for you when your revenue is equal to your expenses. And doing that kind of break-even analysis helps you start to understand where the valuable components of your business are and is your focus in the right area. Next, we've got expense management. So really understanding your fixed costs, being able to identify and manage those fixed costs that you have, things like rent, insurance, salaries. Look at your variable costs, such as utilities, raw materials, and shipping. Get to familiar with when the prices go up and when the prices go down, and making sure that you've planned enough financing that to take advantage of when prices are low, you can buy more in, for example, is quite a good thing to do. Cost control, making sure that you've got measures in place to control and reduce any unnecessary costs. Making sure that you regularly review long-standing contracts that you might have. For example, the hosting of your website, after a year, it may be that you can approach your website host and they will offer you a discount in order for you to stay with them. So rather than just auto renewing, making sure that you've got the best price there. Cash flow management. So prepare regular cash flow statements to monitor the flow of money in and out of your business. Try to have a reserve fund and maintain an emergency amount to cover unexpected expenses or potential downturns in revenue. And again, doing that and knowing it's there just in case will take away some of the financial pressure that you may feel. Making sure that you have good credit management processes in place so people pay you on time. There's no good, someone paying you 6 weeks later than they should have paid you. You need paying on a particular date. You need to make sure that, you have a contract in place that says you pay for this on this date. And if you don't pay on this date, these are the penalties that you may incur, will help you create better credit management processes. Financial statements. So making sure you're tracking your revenue, your costs, your expenses, you're able to determine, profit and loss over a specific period. Particularly useful, when you're seeking for more financial investment, people will want to see that you are really keeping track of your finances. Having a balance sheet that summarizes your business assets, your liabilities, and your equity at any given point in time is going to be really beneficial. Having that cash flow statement that we've just spoken about to monitor when cash is being generated, when it's being used, when it's being invested, and when it's financing other activities. Tax planning. We know that taxes is really important. We know that we have a legal and regulatory obligation to pay tax. So, ensuring that your business is registered with HMRC, either, as a sole trader where you're doing your own self-assessment tax return, or if you're going in as a limited company, making sure that if you are limited, you've got that, you've registered for that, particularly if your threshold is over that £85,000, which is the current rate into 2024. Making sure that you are taking advantage of allowable business expenses to reduce taxable income will again help you, and making sure you're keeping a track of any filing deadlines that you need to meet, so you're not being fined and paying the penalties. Risk management. So this is all about making sure that you've got the appropriate insurance, and that covers you for a particular amount, so that again you've got that reassurance there. It's also handy for that contingency planning, So, you might have insurance that protects you against some financial risks, for example, such as, a huge economic downturn, or you being unable to work for a certain period of time. And making sure that under risk management, we're keeping an eye on any debt, and we're making sure that those debt levels are manageable, and we're avoiding, over leveraging the business with those debts. So really, really important. Next, we've got investment planning. So it's great, your business is creating revenue, you've got money coming in, but how are you going to invest that? How are you going to reinvest those profits into your business for growth and expansion? How are you going to budget for significant investments in equipment, technology, or property? How are you going to budget to make sure that, the machine that you've bought that turns out your widgets has a life expectancy of 5 years? Are you making sure that you are putting back every month something so that in 5 years' time you've got enough revenue there to pay for that new piece of equipment that you've got? So all of those things come into investment planning. And then finally, monitoring and review. Regular reviews of your financial status to compare and contrast from where you are to where you want to be to where you're going to get to, making sure you've got those projections. It allows you to make adjustments, so making necessary adjustments to budgets, to finance plans, to performance, because your market will be continually changing, so you'll need to make those adjustments. And making sure that you're consulting with a reputable financial advisor, accountant, or tax expert, so that you're getting the most up-to-date and professional support is vital. You might also want to look at using some tools or software to help you in your financial planning. So there are a number of them out there. You've got QuickBooks, for example, you've got Free Agent. All of these tools actually do a lot of this groundwork for you, so you're not having to sit there poring over spreadsheets. They'll give you financial dashboards that help you track in real time your money coming in, your money going out, who owes you what, all of those things. So use them and get really familiar so that you're happy with them. So this brings me to the end of today's session on business fundamentals. As I said, it is quite high level because every business, everyone who listens to this will want different things from it. But I hope you have gained something from it, and it's given you a little bit more confidence in you being able to start doing some more in-depth planning for your business and things that are relevant for you. Because remember, you are capable of doing that. And just like this bird, we're never afraid of sitting on that branch and it breaking, because our trust isn't in the branch, but in our own ability to fly. And if we start planning on how we're going to fly, we'll soon realize that we're there and doing it. So thank you once again for listening to this presentation today. I hope you found it useful. I'd love to know your thoughts and your comments. So do connect with me on social media. Let me know what you think. Let me know what plans you've now created because you didn't know you didn't need them before. It'd be lovely to hear from you. Take care, and I hope to see you again soon.